just where I'm at today. I woke up on the right side of the bed, right? I guess that's what we can call that at the end of the day.
That's good. That's good. It could be that,
Yeah.
or what I was gonna say was you could be feeling balanced. All the things in your life could be nice and balanced right now, and it could be, reducing your stress, and that might be what it is.
Maybe not. I mean, I'm not gonna say that's what it is just quite yet, because I think I still need a a little
That's so
more
funny.
a little bit more work to be is needs to happen in order for me to really feel that balance.
Look, hell of an intro. I tell you what you info, but I never really been the type of dude to give no info.
Yeah. We back with another one. Oh man, welcome to the Walker Grill Show, everyone. It's Ronnie Courtney on the mic, and as we like to do, if you didn't hear our last episode, what we did last month at the end of the month, which is our tool of the month, this is what we're going to be speaking about today. So if you're looking for more tools that Courtney and I we implement or we hear on a regular basis and to provide you with something tangible that you can take away from today's episode, this is one of those episodes that you're going to be able to take something away and immediately apply. Not wait till January 1st, not wait till September 15th, or I should say October 15th at this point. But September 15th keeps coming on top of my mind just because I heard Courtney say it. So I
Because
like
I was
to.
gonna say you keep using my date. That's so funny. Wow.
Well,
It had
that
nothing
is
to do
what
with
we're getting.
September either.
Yeah. It's just,
It's just
I'm
so
just going
funny
to
that
keep
it
saying
keeps
it.
coming up. We're gonna be like in December. We're gonna be
It's,
like, do not wait till September 15th. Like,
hey,
uh,
it's the best way to tease one another at the same time is just have fun and just kind of put reality into it, because I know a lot of people are gonna do it. It's like, I'll wait till Monday
yeah.
to do this. It's just, hey, after you're done, write it down somewhere, put it really close to you so that you have the opportunity to implement, because if you remember to implement a week later, man, you must have great memory, because I know
Mhm.
myself, I have to write it down. I have to put it somewhere in order for me to remember it. So I'm actually looking forward to it, because I don't want to talk too much about it, but let's just say Courtney is talking about one of my topics that I go in the large debate with, which is balance.
This
I'm not going
it's
to
so
speak too much
funny.
on it,
Yeah.
but
It's just funny because I
I'm
didn't think
excited
about it.
because, yeah.
Sorry, I'm
and
cutting you off because we're
and
getting excited already.
no, you're good. You're
I
good.
just didn't
It's
when I.
and I'll
Oh my
I'll
gosh.
talk about why I I'll talk about why I feel so strongly when it comes to that word balance later down. But Courtney, how are you today?
I'm okay today. I feel like I'm in a bunch of places. Um,
Mm,
Mentally, emotionally, it's a good thing. If we're talking about where our heart's at,
hmm
then then I am definitely in a place of gratitude, which I think is what I mentioned last time as well. But just a little bit all over the place. I will share with you. Usually, I share these things pre-recording, but I thought it'd be fun to do it
mm.
on the recording
Oh,
today.
you guys are getting a little bit of extra sauce, I see today. Is that what we're doing?
I like to share things with you ahead of time, but I was patient today. But no, I mentioned that I had plans. You knew I had plans yesterday, and what you didn't know was I had the opportunity and the honor, I should say, of getting to meet our last guest in person. So I got to spend some time
No
with
way.
Reggie Ford, yes, and his friend Dee,
Oh
and
shit.
yes, I know. I was gonna call you. I was like, let's FaceTime Ronnie, and by the time I looked, I was like, it's like 10 here. It's like 1 o'clock over there. Like, it wouldn't have made sense, but
Mm,
yeah. So I got to meet Reggie and spend some time with him and his friend, and it's really just like
oh, that's
these people
fire.
are incredible, just from talking to them and all the information that we already have, but in person it's just like it really
Yeah,
solidifies that,
yeah,
and just that relationship that we have and getting to know each other on a deeper level and stuff like that. It's just, yeah, it was fantastic. So it's
yeah.
that, as we know, like, I'm a emotional person, and like I love connecting with people, and things like that. So it's that like gratitude for that opportunity, but also that like, why don't you guys live in Phoenix? Like just that like, oh my gosh, you really have to go back. It was just such a good time. And one thing I was thinking was like, now we definitely have to get D on this podcast because he's just as fantastic. The conversation would
Mm,
be just as, you know, in depth. And that was one thing that was really cool to me was I'm not this type of person, but, and I didn't mean to go this detailed, but they're staying here, they're in an Airbnb, and I just walked in and sat right down on the couch, and I'm like, sweet, we're watching football. All
yeah.
right. Never met these guys before. And it just, as soon as and it's just like, I was just literally, as soon as I walked in, I was like, this is so comfortable. Something just about their vibe. And I think just knowing Reggie a little bit, like, it
Yeah.
was just so comfortable. And I'm just like, sweet. It was just like very like home for me. I don't know what it was, just that. So I know D would be the same way on this show. And I'm manifesting it right now. He'll be on
Yeah.
here one day. So
Uh,
I know he'll listen. But yeah, he'll be on here too. So that's where I'm
That's
at.
that's really cool. I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
that low key warms my heart because it's like that's part of the reason why we do what we do. It's not only to
Hmm.
make sure that we're helping each other, but we are also building connections at the same time. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
you want to do anything in the world, go ahead and do it by yourself, but it's much more fun. It's much more impactful when you do it as a group, as a collective. So, I mean, that right there, I was like, oh man, I will say
Yeah.
thanks for the invite, by the way. I don't know where I was missed out of, but I see how y'all are. It's all right. It's all good. It's my
Next time. They actually came down they came over to go golfing. And
okay.
that's what's kind of crazy. And that's where my brain goes. And we definitely had this conversation because they kind of, I think their brain does that as well, where it's just like, what are the chances?
Yeah.
Because I sent Reggie one message based on one post that he posted, and that's what started all of this,
Yeah.
and when that happened, he had already had a plan to go to Phoenix
Yeah.
to go golfing with his friend. Phoenix of all, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Anywhere you could go golfing, anywhere you could go vacation, and they had already had these plans. And it's like, if I didn't send that message, we wouldn't have had this time together. If
Mm,
this didn't happen, we wouldn't have had this episode together to work off of. I wouldn't have read this book. I wouldn't have, just all of these pieces that fall together. And
hmm
it's so incredible to think about. And yeah,
Now you
so
essentially have someone that you can reach out to for whatever now, right? It's another person that you now
absolutely,
have
absolutely.
in your phone to reach out to, just to connect
Mhm.
with, to see how everyone's doing. If there's something top of mind, again, this is beautiful, I will say.
Mhm.
And a lot of you guys, this is why we do what we do. We don't do it just so you guys can hear from other people's experiences and hear from, what they're going through on a regular basis and how even they manage to get through it. But it's more or less building a place where you can feel comfortable, where you can speak to people who are very like-minded. We live in a world nowadays, let's just call it what it is, where everyone wants to just be negative and comment and just BS and just do all this stuff. But that's not what we are here to do.
Mhm.
We're here to get more or less do what most people don't want to do, right? Which is help each
Mhm.
other, uplift one another, share positive experiences. And sometimes, of
Yep.
course, there's probably going to be some negative, but let's just transition that negative into positive. So, wow.
Mhm.
Wow,
Yeah.
I was not
And
expecting that. I'll tell you that for
I
sure.
know, I know. And just being vulnerable, and that's really
Yeah,
what it came down to. And I know that's what we went into in his episode, but he really does. Like, we'll talk more about what
yeah.
Reggie's like in person. But no, he just really like that's who he is. That really truly who he is. And yeah, so it
I'm
was cool.
I'm
I knew
curious. I'm curious though. How hard was it for you to hold that back from telling me?
that I saw Reggie or that I
Yeah,
was gonna see Reggie.
either one.
My plan was to call you, like FaceTime you.
Okay.
So we were talking about, behind the scenes stuff, and
Yeah,
you're like, we're gonna start, putting up Reggie's content or whatever.
yeah,
So I had this whole plan of like, oh, do we need any more? Like, I have an expert here if you need anything, and just like call you quick and have Reggie on. But yeah, no, it just ended up being later and with the time change and stuff.
right, right.
But yeah, it didn't work out. But I wanted to call you for sure. No, next trip we'll plan. We'll come to you. Everyone will just fly out to you. It'll
Yeah,
make sure to include you, or you can come here. You're always welcome.
yeah.
But
I think I
yeah,
might be forced into having a big shebang for New Year's. Not maybe
mm,
not the same way we did last year, but a buddy of mine is like, yeah, he invited himself to North Carolina, so
Mhm.
I'm forced, like I said, my hand. If he's listening to this, he
Mhm.
knows exactly what he's doing. But it's all good, you know. We're here to have a great time with one another. So I
Mhm.
think New Year's could be a good time if everybody's down. I could put something together
Mhm.
and we could lit up, like, go into
Mhm.
2024 with high
Mhm.
expectations, and well, at least
Mhm.
myself, but with
Yeah.
that good start.
Absolutely. And I know this is something that you've said to me and meant a lot to me when you said it, but it's just finding these people and, building those relationships and knowing like a person with this type of heart is someone that you don't let go of
Hmm.
and someone that you hold close to you. And it's incredible how we've been able to find those people and
Yeah.
have them here.
They're hard to
And
find.
mhm, sometimes they are, yeah, but it's crazy how we're just multiplying those real, genuine, vulnerable, just incredible people in our lives, and it's awesome.
No.
So
So if you
yeah, I'm
haven't listened
surprised.
to, sorry, Courtney, if you haven't listened to last week's episode where we
Hmm.
spoke to Reggie, we had a very in-depth conversation with him. You can kind of hear his mindset and see a little bit what Courtney's speaking on. Again,
Hmm.
I've spoken to him online, offline, and so
Hmm.
I kind of have a little bit more, but Courtney's taken a step further. So she's beat me. She got me by a
I
landslide
got
at this
lucky.
point.
I got lucky.
Yeah,
It wasn't planned. I got lucky, but no, I was just gonna say I'm surprised. I thought I knew what you were gonna say, but you haven't said it yet. You you mentioned it in the comments, but you haven't said it yet. I was expecting a.
say it. Then I don't know what you're thinking.
I was just waiting for that's it. That's the walk and grow effect.
Ah. Oh
Here
man,
we are,
yeah,
folks. That's what you get, the walk and grow
yeah.
effect. Yeah.
It's a two-player street. So if I don't got it, I know I can rely on you to back it up and make sure you knock it. Give
Mhm.
us that home run that we need every single
Mhm.
time.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
man,
but
that's great. I
so
think
long story long, that's how I'm doing.
that's good now.
So how are you doing, Ronnie?
I'm doing good. I know I don't like to use the word good, and I like to give
Mhm.
you guys a little bit of context. Nothing really special going on. I just feel like good spirits. I'm just high. Not even can't really call it anything, right? I'm fine. I'm good. I'm just. It's one of those days where it's like I'm good, but I'm in it. Really high spirits.
Mhm.
Like if somebody were to say, "Hey, Ronnie, I need you to do this," now it's like I'm a 90% chance going to do it. Whereas some other days I'll probably be like, I got to think about this one.
Mhm.
But if it's one of those
Feeling.
things of just high spirit, ready to just kind of relax. I don't know if there's nothing that really happened
Mhm.
to really put me in this kind of spirit, I would say, but it's
Mhm.
just where I'm at today. I woke up on the right
Mhm.
side of the bed, right? I guess that's what we can call that at the end of the day.
That's good. That's good. It could be that,
Yeah.
or what I was gonna say was you could be feeling balanced. All the things in your life could be nice and balanced right now, and it could be, reducing your stress, and that might be what it is.
Maybe not. I mean, I'm not gonna say that's what it is just quite yet, because I think I still need a a little
That's so
more
funny.
a little bit more work to be is needs to happen in order for me to really feel that balance. And I'm glad that you said that because maybe that's probably what it is. Maybe today that's what I
Hmm.
feel, but on the longevity of
Hmm.
thing, if you guys know
That's okay.
me, I don't believe in balance just quite yet. So we can go into this whole debate of what balance really is because I personally believe that balance is what you designed your life to be. So, for
Hmm.
instance, if you know that you want to spend 8 hours sleeping, if you know you're going to spend 8 hours at work, all right, what are your remaining 8 hours going to look like? Did you design that? Is that literally your life? And if so, great. You have a balanced life. Me, I don't. I'm just not there yet. I don't have these things where it's like, calculated to a point where I know
Hmm.
this is how much I want to do something and how long and for, the time period that goes into it. So, maybe I'm semi there. I could kind of see it. I'm
Hmm.
slightly there, but mm-mm. And for anyone that's gonna sit here and tell me you're 100% balanced, write me a DM
Hmm.
and let's talk. And in fact, how about you come on to the podcast and let's really talk about it? Because I would love to hear what your balance sounds like, looks like, and so we could really get into this conversation. But I think this really goes hand in hand with what you have to say, Courtney. What you have to share with us.
Yes,
I know we're talking a
it
lot
does.
about us. So I guess we could go
Yeah.
dive right into the tool of the month and hear what it is that you have to say when it comes to balanced.
Mhm. It's so funny because when I shared with you that I had a tool, so a little bit of backstory. I was doing this with a client this week actually, and as we were working on it, I was like, "This is a great tool. It's not that hard to put together. It's really easy to just kind of help observe how you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Really, that's what it comes down to. Is like, and this kind of goes into like when we were having a conversation with Leon,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like journaling but not wanting to like write a story.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you check in with yourself? How do you kind of document and like record or whatever it is, just so that you can look back and see how you're doing? And this is
Mm-hmm.
definitely one way you can do that. So I was just doing it with a client, and I was like, "This is a really good tool." And I texted you, and I was like, "I think I have our tool of the month." And it's just so funny because not until I sat down with you, I was like, "Oh yeah, that whole thing with balance. Like, this is gonna be a lot more interesting than I thought." So yeah, now I'm definitely looking forward to it. But yeah, the tool itself, I actually got it from a I guess this is more backstory, but it's called Smart Recovery, and it's a group. From my experience, it's a group for recovery.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a AA, but different. It's based in like CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, and the basis of CBT is basically just that your thoughts control your feelings, which control your actions and your behaviors. And then your actions and your behaviors will control how you feel, or not control, but just everything feeds into each other.
Yeah.
So thoughts, feelings, and actions and behaviors, like all of those things, it's one big cycle,
Mm-hmm.
and it's all going to impact one another. So that's basically what it goes into. So if you can change your thoughts, you can change how you're feeling, and then you can change your behaviors and make it more positive. So that's kind of the very low level basics of it. Um, but with the smart recovery, they were talking about balance and the need for balance and the need to be able to, when you have that
Balance.
balance in your life. Let me explain first. When you have that balance, it helps to manage stress. And well, one thing that oh my gosh, I can already tell this is gonna be a fun one. When you talk about balance, you're talking about time. That's
Yeah.
not what I'm talking. I don't talk about time at all. Like this has really nothing to
Okay,
do
so
with time.
when you're talking about balance, then what are you referring to?
I'm referring to me it's more of energy, and it's more of like
Okay.
how are things going? So, and we'll get into it with each category that we talk about, but I'm not talking about, so these categories that we have that I'll explain later, I'm not talking about how much time am I spending on this? How much time am I sleeping 8 hours versus working 8 hours versus eating for 8 hours versus spending, it has nothing to do with that. It's just more so
All
how am
right.
I feeling in this?
Let's get
How am
into
I
it.
feeling?
Let's get into it. Come on, let's go. Let's get into this. But
Oh no.
I like
And
what
I,
you. One of the things I do like that you said that I don't want to. I want to kind of go back on. I should interject when I
mhm.
heard it, but you said your thoughts essentially are going to dictate how you feel, and I really want to kind
Yes.
of stay there a little bit and just emphasize, like, I think that's a really big thing that a lot of people do miss. I'm a real big believer with, you know, what you say is going to happen. Thoughts become things.
Hmm.
Manifestation was, you know, I believe in that, and I could give you
Yeah.
guys a real life example just off of personal experience. And this is when I knew it was real. This is when I knew, all
Hmm.
right, you really have to be careful what you think, and you really have to be careful what you say, because some way, somehow, those things are actually going to become your reality. And if you don't like what you're saying, if you don't like what you're thinking, then you might want to shift that. And I'll
Hmm.
give you guys really quick, don't want to get into details, but it was one day I was driving, and I immediately told myself as I'm driving, hey, maybe I should slow down, because I'm probably going to get a ticket. If I or I'm gonna get pulled over is literally what I said to myself. And I kid you not, as soon as I finished my sentence, I looked in my rearview mirror. What do you believe? I'm getting pulled over. And so
Hmm.
at that point in time, that's when I knew, all right, yeah, you got to be careful what the hell you say and what the hell you put into your brain, because
That's
that could be, you know, you're feeding the universe exactly what it is that you want, essentially, even
that
if you don't.
law of attraction.
There it
Yeah.
is. Yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is that happens. So I want to just kind of, for those that are listening and those that actually implement and take what we say into
Mhm.
consideration, really true indeed. Be careful what you think about and what you say. Even the songs that you're listening to, sometimes, just be careful with it. What you say, what you think is very powerful. And I could even say, go watch The Secret, right? If you guys
Mm-hmm.
haven't heard about that, you know about it. That's another way where they go into deep diving of how you could really train yourself. But I don't want to take away too much of this thing you call balance. So let's roll right back into it.
um, yeah, we'll talk about this stupid thing that we got going on. No, but no, you're right, and I didn't. Not that this conversation is a problem whatsoever, but I almost didn't want to get into that CBT dynamic too much because I really think that could be a tool of the month in itself, or
Yeah.
a conversation that we have in itself where the thoughts, feelings, behaviors, because it really does, it impacts so much, and it
Hmm.
makes sense when you think about it. If I'm not feeling good, my headspace isn't right, and if my headspace isn't right, then it's not gonna, I'm not gonna be in a good mood, and then I'm not gonna do anything that's good for me.
Right.
But until I can make that cycle more positive, so it makes more sense, and that's definitely a conversation we could go more into. And I'm happy to share more about like the CBT principles if anybody has any questions or anything like that. But yeah, so that's where this comes from, is like a CBT activity that you can do. Yeah, so should we just dive in?
Yeah, go
Should
ahead.
I
Share your screen.
share?
We're gonna do our best to, for those listening on the audio version only, we're gonna do our best to explain as much as possible. But if you don't want to hear or our explanation is just horrible, just go on to YouTube. 20-minute mark. You can kind of preface that right there, and
Mm-hmm.
use what we have on the YouTube to kind of guide yourself and walk through what Courtney is gonna share here, when it comes to just having a personal life balance. All right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then also, of course, we're gonna try to have this on Instagram. So if you're on our Instagram, if for any reason you
Yep.
can't get on YouTube or the Instagram, like, and it's something that you want to see, I know Ronnie always brings up our email. You can definitely email us. There's so many different ways to get in touch with us if you are interested in like seeing these things, or I'm not as tech savvy as you are. I don't use Canva every single day like you do, Courtney. How do I do this in another way? I'd be more
Mm-hmm.
than happy to explain different ways. Um, so everything looks good on your side in terms
Yep.
of. Okay, perfect. So this is where you'll start. So the first thing is with the lifestyle balance pie is figuring out the categories in your life. So are
Okay.
you going to do it with me,
I
Ronnie?
absolutely am. Because I am going to
Yeah.
destroy this, but anyway, I possibly can.
We love this positive and healthy relationship. We love this.
Well, it's because
Um,
some people,
so,
it's just I again. Let's go.
no,
Let's
I'm
go.
ready.
Let's go.
I'm ready.
Let's.
I'll take you. Let's go.
Oh, sure.
So, so here's the categories. Um, So this, and I just want to say again, this is something I did with a client. So this is I was just sharing with Ronnie prior to this, like this is really authentic. This is exactly how I would have done my actual current lifestyle balance pie, which I'm glad I got to do because now it's authentic and it's really what I'm going to show everybody. So these are my categories. So I have work, of course. Rugby does take up a lot of my time and it's something I put a lot of effort into and something I care deeply about. Family, of course. I have personal relationships outside of family.
Hmm.
And then self-care, so just time for me. And then I have walk and grow. Of course, I had the podcast on here.
Okay.
So you just write down your categories first.
Yep.
Do you have all of your categories?
I believe so. So I have real estate, podcasts, physical, being like exercise
Mm-hmm.
and anything of that nature, family, relationship. I believe that's everything I could really think of in the span of a couple
Mm-hmm.
seconds. So if I could do it, you guys all can do it. So don't feed me
Mm-hmm.
that. Oh, this is too hard to think about. No, guys, come on now. Let's get serious.
And that is one thing to point out is these categories could be completely different for everybody, right? If you have kids, your kids might be a category outside of family because it's a whole different situation, right? Or
Yeah,
like just you never know what's going on in your life, so these categories can shift. These categories, you can have more categories, less categories, just depending on what's going on in your
okay.
life.
I got a
So
question about yours though, because you have personal and you have self care, and so
personal relationships, it looks like two, but it's one.
okay, okay, gotcha, got it. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, nope, good question. Yeah, personal relationships. Yeah, all
Okay,
right. So the next part is you determine how many categories you have. So I have 6 altogether.
I have 5.
Okay, so when you put your pie together,
My
you're making
pie,
like a
yeah.
pie chart. I didn't do that on purpose, but I'm glad that happened. That was cute. So I have 6 categories. So I
Okay.
have my 6 parts of the pie. So if you're drawing this, it's super easy. You're just going to draw a circle and you will have 5 slices.
Mm-hmm.
And I just make them even. That's how I do it this way. Later on, I'll go over like a different way you can do it if you choose to, but I just make them all even for now.
Okay.
And of course, for me, I like to have it color coded. The aesthetic makes me very happy. So, however you guys like to do this, make it fun, make it creative. Don't make it fun, make it creative, whatever makes you happy. But I love my colors. So, next step is you're going to label each one. So, each one has, obviously each slice of the pie is going to be a category. So, you just label those really quick.
Label them in terms of like what do you mean by label though?
So each pie, like each slice of the pie is one of your categories. So you have 5 slices. So
Yeah.
that's all it is.
So it's just one
I
through
have a
five
work
essentially.
slice. Yep, that's all it is. Just like write the names in them,
Okay.
just so you know which slice is for what.
All right. And guys, I'm doing this
After they
literally on a
are,
sticky note, so you know, don't tell me you can't do it. Just please don't do
uh-huh.
that.
Yeah, it's perfect. All right, so then when you have each slice labeled, the next thing that you're going to do is go back to your list. And on a scale of 1 to 10, how is each of these categories feeling right now? So the way that I think of that is 1 is like, this is the absolute worst. It is just completely
Okay.
draining me. Whatever it is, it's just absolutely miserable. 1 is terrible. 10 is like, it is absolutely perfect. Everything is fantastic, going great. I couldn't ask for anything else from this category. I am noticing that 9s and 10s are very difficult for me. I don't think I've ever given anything a 10, and I've done this activity a couple times. So these are my rankings, I guess. We're not necessarily ranking,
Yeah.
but on a scale of 1 to 10, this is how the numbers that I'm giving
So
it.
what makes a one in comparison to like I know you kind of just made it like you kind of said, but
Mhm.
what if you said you don't give yourself a 10, but like in your eyes, what would be a 10 for you?
A 10 would be,
For any of these on this list. Like let's just give an example for
yeah.
one. Like rugby, right? Rugby is a 7. What would make
hmm
rugby a 10?
hmm I actually really like that question. If rugby was a 10, it would just be, like I said, it would be perfection. So it's not even necessarily, I'm not even necessarily asking for 10s, but for the sake of this question, it would be, I feel like I'm playing to the best of my ability.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting the playing time that I'm looking for. I'm learning. Practice is going really well. I'm the social chair for my team. So socials are going really well.
Mm,
People are engaging. It's one of those, like, this is exactly what I would really like this
got
to
it.
look like. And I'm really, truly enjoying it.
Gotcha.
And things being at a 7, things being at a 6, it doesn't mean it's going poorly. Rugby's not going poorly right now. It really just hasn't started yet. And it's just more of, for me, my 7 is a little bit more of like apprehensive. I hope this is going to go well. I need to get in shape so I can play at the speed that I want to play, things like that. So it doesn't necessarily have to be like, ooh, it's a 6, that means it's bad. It's like, no,
Mm-hmm.
it's just things that I know I need to put a little bit more effort into, or, whatever's going on at the time, scored it low.
Got it.
And I want to refer back to that question actually, because, and I guess probably this is something I could do later, but I don't want to forget. That is actually a tool that we use in therapy all the time. So I see you have a 6, or I see you have a 7. What could we do to
Yeah.
make that an 8? And we're not looking for 10s. I'll have clients who are like, family's a 3 right now, or school is a 3, or whatever it is. And it's like, okay, what could we get you? What can we do to get you to a 3.5? Just tiny, tiny steps. So I like that
Mm,
you asked that, because, and that's kind of what comes at the end of this is what do we have to do to improve these numbers. So
yeah. Now that's a
moving
trick we
forward
use in real estate too. So for you guys, I'm
yeah.
gonna give you a little inside scoop of how we make sure that we're doing our processes right. And sometimes, I'll have people rate their houses after we see it, or not their houses, but the houses that we see. and they're like, yeah, that was a 7. It's like, okay, well, what would make it a 10? That helps me
Mhm.
understand what more is it that they're looking for in a home, so that we could make sure that we're
Mhm.
pairing it.
Mhm.
So that's how that I was able to throw that question in and just
Mhm.
preface this. So there you guys know.
That's cool.
I give you a little inside scoop of how sales actually operate if you're in sales.
That's cool, and it makes sense that you would go from 7 to a 10, but then it makes sense on my end why I wouldn't. Why
Yeah.
I'd go from a 7 to a 7.5, 7 and 8. So that's kind of cool how it plays out in different areas.
So
But
we have all your categories. We have how you
mhm.
believe that you are kind of leveled, I guess, ranked in it within that
Yep.
self. What's next?
Next step. This might be the hardest to explain if you're not looking at it, but what we're gonna do with these numbers is just place them within the slice of pie where they kind of exist from 1 to 10. So the way that I look at it is if the center, like the center point is 1 and the outside line is 10, where would a 6
Um,
lie? Does that make sense?
yeah, it
So
does.
I don't know if you see my like cursor
Yep, I can.
for the people who can see it. So I'm looking at work, for example. So a 5 would be here, right? It'd be kind of right
Right.
in the middle. So this is where a 6 would be. So again, this is 1 and
So
this is 10
one being
for
dead
each one.
center, and essentially
Yep,
the outer circle would be your
being
tens.
10. Yep.
Gotcha.
So that's why 6 is closer to the middle, and then my 8s, you can tell, are pretty close to the
Ah, see, I
outside.
didn't even
Like,
recognize
not,
that.
yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yep.
And
So you
you
can,
can even like add another circle into it if you want it to be to
mhm,
perfection.
mhm, mhm. That's true. Yeah, absolutely. Can measure it out however you want to do it. And like I said, if you're drawing it on paper, you might have some other markers or, you might have some other ways of noticing. But yeah, that's all you're going to do is just kind of I just placed a dot. And then if you want to label the dot, you can. So I placed a dot and I placed my number in it so I can read it.
Mm. So I
Um,
got a question because
yep.
um I'm probably not gonna do that just because I see it as like, what's the point of you know putting it
You already know
on?
your
Well,
numbers.
I see exactly. I see my number is so
Hmm.
it's like, where does me putting it on the circle, or at least in that
Hmm.
specific category, where does that really help? Like, what does that visually help someone do?
So I'll show you the next part, and that
Oh,
might
she got
help
this
a
shit
little
ready.
bit.
Okay, excuse me. Alrighty, I was ready to
When,
attack. That's all, guys.
mm, yep, not me. All right, so for this
Ah,
part, and your question is valid because not everyone needs to have this visual per se, but
yeah.
when you connect the dots that you just created or chose not to create, when, when you connect those dots, people have to come on YouTube. Like these
Hey.
little things. Oh my gosh. When you connect these dots, that's when you're going to see whether you have that balance or not. So the closer you have, and of course it's not going to be a perfect circle because they're straight lines. I could
Right.
make them whatever.
I
But
see.
the closer you have to an even shape, the more balance you have.
Yeah.
So so right now I'm pretty balanced, right? You can tell the one side of the pretty balanced. Listen, like I said, I work with teens who have tens and twos and sixes and
Oh my
fours
god.
and
Hey, you should
all over
not
the
be
place.
making any sort of comparison. Comparison is
No,
the death
what
of
I'm
you.
what I'm saying is I've seen lots of lifestyle balanced
Yeah.
pies in my day. And I've made a bunch that did not were not as balanced. And like I said, I've had all different kinds of categories. Rugby is something for me that's kind of gone up and down. Work has gone up and down. Personal relationships,
Right.
self care actually is probably the one that's gone up and down the most. So you'll notice, and that's why I like this tool as something that you can come back to, and
Yeah.
especially the way that I did it. All that I would have to do is take my cursor and just move my number down a little bit, move the dot down, change the number, and that's how I'm observing. And I would save each one
Hmm.
so that I can see, okay, this was my lifestyle balance pie in September, this is my lifestyle balance pie in October, or however you want to do it, just to see what that balance looks like or what those numbers look like for you.
Right. So
So
I want to stop you really quickly because you mentioned
mhm.
you're doing this. It sounds like you're doing this more often than not. So how often are you actually like just reevaluating and kind of looking at a chart like this to kind
Mhm.
of see where you're at?
This actually isn't a tool that I use that way.
Okay.
I just kind of like am lucky when it fits for my clients. So one of my clients was having a really difficult time. She had a really big decision to make, and it's just briefly, her mom was moving and her dad's staying here. So do I
Ah.
go with mom or do I stay with dad? Basically, really big decision to make. And there was just lots of things. The school would change, relationship would
Yep.
change, my
Yep.
friends, and like all these different things. So it was just a lot of like, I'm stressed about all these different things. And I was like, let's just
It's
take a
pretty
breath and
cool.
look at each piece.
Mm-hmm.
We'll look at each part of the pie. And a lot of times what comes up as well is she, I don't want to say she was lucky, but she knows exactly what she was stressed about. A lot of times what we notice is like, I'm feeling so much stress and I don't know where it's coming from. I
Mm.
don't know what it is. I don't know what's bothering me, or I'm feeling really emotional and I don't know why, or whatever it is. And when we look at, not that you have to go through the whole pie activity, but if you just put your categories together, just look at the categories in your life and like place them. I'm a very visual person, so I would probably place them on the pie at least, and then say, which one is taking all of my energy?
Yeah.
Is there one that I'm giving way more energy right now and the other ones are kind of lacking because of that? That could be the source of why you're feeling stressed.
Mm-hmm.
So with these numbers, when you do have the numbers on there, when you do have the lines, I can look and I can say, I know that right now work is feeling stressful for me and I know why. So what do I have control over? What can I do to make it a 6.5, to make it a 7, or whatever the
Mm-hmm.
case may be, and take those steps? I know right now that I'm feeling actually, shockingly, pretty good about my personal relationships. So I'm good on that. I can take a breath in that area. I don't have to worry about it as much. Same with podcast is up there. So, like, it's not something I'm worried about. We put time and we put effort into it, but it's not something that stresses me in terms of like,
Right.
oh, this is terrible. Ronnie and I are just not on the same page. What are we gonna do? Right? It's not something I necessarily have to stress about. Thank God.
See, I'm a great partner,
So,
guys. As much BS as I may, come on here and talk about. I'm a great partner.
we work well together. And like I said, this is honest. I didn't come on here and be like, I gotta put out an 8 so Ronnie doesn't give me any shit.
I mean, I
This
gave
was true,
honestly,
authentic.
I saw yours and I didn't want to see, and I know this is probably what a lot of people are gonna do. When I saw what you ranked or kind of gave you what number you
Hmm.
gave yours, I immediately tried not to look at it because I didn't want
Yeah,
that to be all right. Now I have to base mine off of
yours.
which,
Yeah.
and I gave myself
Hmm.
an 8 for podcast as well. The only eights
Hmm.
were on my list were physical health, which was physical exercise, and the podcast. Everything else was
Hmm.
sixes. So.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That's pretty balanced.
Uh, I mean,
That's.
I like to be a high achiever, so I think those numbers should
Hmm.
be more 8 and above in order for me to
Hmm.
really feel like I'm balanced and operating at a high level. Because I know
Hmm.
there's more in me, and I know there's more I can do, and this is just self reflection, right? So, guys, take some time. Like Courtney said, if there's something that is stressing you out, take some time, sit with yourself, figure out what's stressing you out.
Hmm.
What is it that you can do to make it better? And so, all the sixes that I'm looking on the board, these are all things that I can control. These are all things I do
Hmm.
control, and it's like those numbers should definitely be higher because it's family, relationships, and we're talking about real estate, right? Those are the three
Hmm.
where it's like, why aren't those higher?
Yeah.
Because of course I want to be effective, I want to be efficient with my time and just the things that I do on a regular basis, and those are things that I think all three of those was looking at it. Yeah, they may look balanced, but in all reality, those are the three most important things that I should have at a high level
Yeah.
and balanced to a
Mm.
T. Because especially family.
Yeah. And you might even look at this and they could all be 8s, or they could all, they could all be good numbers, or they could all
Yeah.
be balanced. But you could say, why is work the same level as family? I don't want to have work on the same level. I want family to be, you know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
really comes down to priorities, and not that
Mm.
you want all things to be going well. Again, this isn't about time. This isn't about how much time am I spending at work? How much time am I spending with family? How much time am I spending on podcasts? I'm just saying, like it's more about like how are you feeling in each of these categories, and that's, you could be spending no time on it and you're still really happy about it. That's great. It could still be a 9. You know what I mean? Like if it's still, I'm just saying, if that's what's making you,
That's for
I don't.
this is more of a
If if
feely
you
type of
are
situation rather than like
not
analysis.
feely, are you feeling fulfilled in these areas? Not so
Yeah.
much like, it doesn't have to. I don't know.
Everybody's probably listening like, Ronnie, stop giving her shit. Please, stop,
I
stop.
know. It has nothing to do with what she's talking about. No, but yeah, but it's really just, how are you feeling in each of these categories? Are they giving
Yeah.
you stress? Is it something that's feeling, are you fulfilled in each of these areas? And I really do think that's what it comes down to, is just like a lot of times we're like, I'm good. What is stressing me out? And it's like, oh yeah, there's that one slice or that one category that I'm just not giving enough to.
Mm,
A lot of times, I know it's going to depend on the person, but a lot of times it's probably going to be self-care. It's probably going to
yeah.
be, you don't even have self-care outside of physical health on yours, do
No, I
you?
don't. I don't have self care at all on mine.
Mental
Um,
health, nothing. So
no.
just thinking about that in terms of like, is this a category I need to add? Is this a category that
Well,
is doing well but I just forgot about? Or
I do a lot of self care on a regular basis, and so my self care is not going to look like anybody's. I'll tell you that. It's just going to look
mm-hmm,
like Ronnie's, right? So my self
mm-hmm,
care is more or less going to be again what I do on a daily basis, which is kind of focus, listen to podcasts, educate myself, have
mm-hmm.
conversations with others. The podcast is like I said. I mean, I tell you guys,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
you in all reality, yes, seeking for professional help is always going to be the best thing. But I promise you guys, I have someone who actually is giving me some sort of. I won't tell you who. Can't disclose that because again, I just don't want to. But anyways, it's one of those things where it's like
That's
the
funny.
things that I do, I have that self care aspect into it. Of course, I think
Mm-hmm.
it could be more, but the
Yeah.
things that I do on a regular basis is it's providing it. It's all geared towards my purpose. So that self care
Mm-hmm.
aspect, of course, I think I could add that to it, but I would really have to think about what does self care even look like for me.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest with you.
And I think that that's probably a good thing from my perspective. That's probably a good thing that you don't necessarily have to think about it, because a lot of times the categories that are easy to come up with, of course, you have like family and work and stuff that we always
Yeah.
do, but a lot of times it's going to be like, oh, I'm really struggling with this, so I have to add it, right? Or like,
Mm-hmm.
this is taking a lot out of my day, so I'm going to have to add this. So if it's not something that pops up in your head, it might be like, oh, I didn't even think about that because it's just going good right now,
Right.
or it's not really affecting me right now. Where, or like you said, like you just do a good job of implementing it into other things. Where for me, self-care, especially the last couple months this year, like in total, it just is something that I really needed to focus on and I really needed to separate. And I would have said like, no, time with friends or rugby is self-care or this and that. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, I also just need time for me. I
Yeah.
needed to just sit and read the Reggie's book.
That's
I
fair.
really just needed to sit and just there I will schedule time, just cuddle Pua,
Mm-hmm.
just sit and pet your dog and don't, you know what I mean? That's it. That's all we're going to do for this much time. And
Yeah.
just have time to relax and go to bed early. Like being
Yeah.
intentional about those things. And so to me, it was like that intentionality part it needs to have its own category. So
Yeah.
again, it just kind of comes down to like where you're at in your life and what you feel like you need to include.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
Did you have any more that you're going to share with us, or is this pretty much it?
so the only other thing I was going to add, so again, this kind of just comes down to the visual aspect of like when you're able to see that circle and see if it's for the most part balanced. Again, not all the numbers have to be tens, not all the numbers have to be equal. It's just more about, does it look balanced? Because if one was a 2, right? If one was a 10 and one was a 4, you're going to notice that imbalance,
Mm,
and it is going to impact you a little bit. And we already talked about those are the categories that you're going to pay a little bit more attention to, put a little bit of effort on, and that's okay. The only other thing I was going to add was there are other ways of doing this if you choose to. So if you don't feel like ranking them, especially the way that I made it into kind of like a pie,
mm,
one thing that I do with clients sometimes is percentages. So literally having it like a pie chart. So, and that could be energy or time or however you want to do it. But I know that I put this much time into this, so that's going to be 40%. And it just kind
yeah.
of,
Now you're talking my language.
the reason the reason that I bring it up is just because everyone's, like I said,
Yeah.
perfect example, everyone's brain works a little bit differently.
Yeah.
This for me, I can see the balance, I can see the numbers, I can see, things like that. But for you, you might like it better where it's like, okay, I can see work is taking up this percentage. I
Mm-hmm.
only have this much for family. Self care doesn't exist right now. You know what I mean? Like that type of thing, if you see it in that type of chart.
Right.
So that's another way that you can do it. If you choose to do it like that, you can,
Yeah.
however you write it out, however you want to draw it, using your imagination, your creativity to make it what you need to do. But
Yeah.
this is the way it's done as the activity, but there's so many different,
Now you
ways you
won
can
me over. I'll
switch it
tell
up.
you that just by saying, you could do percentages and
Percentage.
yeah. Now you won me over with this. I
Ooh,
will say
numbers.
that I think like for myself, I think implementing something like this on the monthly basis, like how do we perform for the month, could be a really good tool. I know I do it for the day, and I'm able to track that how I do it for the month. So doing something like this could really help that individuals with implementing it on a monthly basis, because then you could really see how were you for the month, and where should your focus go for the following month to kind of create what we
Exactly.
call, or at least what Courtney loves to call, balance.
And and when I was doing this with my client, I was open with her, and I was just like, this is actually better than anyone I've had before
Mm,
in terms of balance, in terms of my numbers. So again, it's not something that I do monthly or have done monthly, but I've done it a couple times just with clients. And so being able to see how it changes, just kind of like
yeah,
authentically, not because I've been putting work into me, but I haven't been putting work into my pie. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It wasn't because I was looking at the categories. It was just more so just work I needed to do. So it's kind of cool to see how it has just changed. Um, Another thing that I kind of just thought of was, if you're if it is like a personal relationship you want to work on, you can do this type of activity within relationships. You can do this type of activity within work. So I'm just gonna relationships is kind of like my go-to. That's where my education is. If you're working on a relationship, you could do your categories could be communication, quality time, acts of it could be, work around the house, what things go
hmm,
into, of course that's assuming you live together, what things go into a relationship, what should be those categories, rank them together. That's a
yeah,
tool that you can use. How are we doing? How do you feel our communication was last month on a scale of 1 to 10? How do I feel? Things like that, if you want
yeah.
to work on it. You could
That,
do the same thing with work. What are some categories that go into work? What are some, right? And
man,
you could use this pie, you can really break it down.
that reminds me of a buddy of mine. He mentioned his significant other and himself are on like this app where it's like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know the name of it, so sorry guys, but it's like every day you're asking a question to your significant other, and it goes both ways, and I don't know how exactly it works. I don't use it. I haven't. He just spoke about it, and that's something that they do. It's something kind of to that magnitude that you're saying. Like you can have different pies
Checking
for
in.
different sectors or information that's going on in your life, and I
Mm-hmm.
really like that. I mean, it kind of made me think really quickly of that app that's out there. And if you want it, just reach out and I'll make sure to get whatever the name of that app is. But yeah, no, I was like, wow, that's actually really cool. I didn't think about it even on asking. I just thought about my life. I didn't think about breaking it into, the
Mm-hmm.
relationships. Like each and every single one of yours can actually be broken into a little bit more,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's
And
cool.
if you can look at it and see like what is your lower, what are your lower numbers, let's break that into categories and see what I can work on
Yeah.
and see which piece. But yeah, I think in terms of relationships, I think that's great because you can both rank and both see how you're doing. There's lots of tools out there for that though. I know there's
Okay.
like relationship journals that you can do. You can just look up like on it. TikTok is huge in terms of, I know how you feel about TikTok, but TikTok is huge in terms of just like Instagram, whatever, where it's just like questions to ask your partner for like, or vulnerable questions or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it's just like one check in a night. You ask the question, they answer, and then you answer and see how you're feeling and check in with each other, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be something you pay for or something you spend
Mm-hmm.
a ton of time on. It's just more so, let's just pick a question, find a question, pick a question, and check in with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could be as simple as, how's your heart?
Yeah.
Right? At the beginning of the episode, how's your heart today? Right? Rather than just, you sit at the table, how's your day? How's work? Right? But no, how is your heart? How are you really feeling? What are some more ways you could be appreciated, or that I could appreciate you, or things
Right.
like that? Like it could just be the same question weekly or whatever it is. But yeah, lots of ways to break these
Oh, that's
things down.
definitely really cool.
So
I'm glad you brought this to my attention
Yeah.
because now this is something I'm gonna look at. Not so much, I don't like, I'm not a firm believer of balance just quite yet. I think I still have work to do when it comes to balance, but I think just seeing this tool in itself is gonna definitely be able to help me create what I believe balance is supposed to be for myself. Now, balance is gonna look
Mhm.
differently for everyone. You create it however you want. If balance is 100% work, then knock yourself out. Enjoy that. But I think it's important for people to kind of have these sort of tools and things that they can do to help them create their life by design. Because essentially, that's what I truly do believe. It's create your life, man. We have one life to live. I don't want to get dark in anything on this, but it's take make the best out of it and enjoy it. Because again, like Leon will say, life is long.
Life is long. Yep. Yeah. Thank you. No, I'm glad this kind of came up this week. As I was doing it, I was like, yeah, I think this is a good one. So I'm glad we had the opportunity and we could get a little bit more middle ground with this whole balance thing,
Yeah.
getting closer. But yeah, and like I said, I always say I'm always here for questions, DMs, emails, whatever. I'm more than happy to further explain or share pictures or different ways of doing it. Like I said, I've done it a bunch of different times in a bunch of different ways, so I can share the source, however you want to do it. It is actually, if anybody wants to look up, Smart Recovery is its own website. I don't know if it's like .com, .org, but there's a lot of different resources and a lot of different tools as well. And one thing that I will say, just a little bit more like therapy background, I had to go to recovery groups for school, just for college. Like we just had to go to groups and choose them. And it was incredible to me how, especially with CBT, that makes sense, but how similar recovery is to just trauma,
Mm.
to just recovering from trauma and healing from trauma. So just because I'm like, oh, these are recovery tools, it's so fantastic for just stress relief, trauma, all of those things. So don't let the recovery piece scare you away if that's not something you feel like you identify with. Because again, these are just cognitive behavioral therapy tools that I really truly feel like everyone can identify with and can use. So yeah, if you want to go to the Smart Recovery website and look at some of those tools, you definitely can. They're free and downloadable. But yeah,
And Smart
reach out with
Recovery.
any other
That wasn't a
questions.
sponsor. That wasn't an ad or anything. But hey, Smart Recovery. I will say. I'm just gonna publicly say this. Yeah. Email us at walkandgrow@gmail.com, please. But anyways, till next time. As you guys like to know, we like to give out the walk and grow effect, and I think this was a great tool for you guys to go out there and implement. And so, if you're starting to do these little circles and starting to put numbers, and people are like, "What is this?" Just tell them it's the walk and grow effect. So till next time, keep on applying those perspectives, education, growth, and collaboration, y'all.